Hello students, here we are looking at the Module 3 review sheet. This is the answer key to the review sheet for Module 3 test, which is coming up in the next day or two. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll see if we can get this all in the one video. Alright, so remember, reading for the gist is in the last. Which equation can be used to determine how much the electrician charged per hour? Alright, so X dollars per hour for a 5-hour job plus $70 in parts. Total was 320, so hopefully you're able to come up with that one pretty easily. Alright, which expression represents the sum? I like to put these underneath each other. You have a 2x and a 1x, that's a 3x. Careful of signs here. Negative 5 plus 1 is negative 4. Y. The answer would be A. Number 3, we talked about this in class, but by putting a set of parentheses in an equation, it changes the order that we would typically do. In a standard equation, like a 5x plus 4 equals 16, we would get rid of the 4 first and then divide by the 5. So we subtract 4 and divide 5. But by putting a set of parentheses there, that changes the order. And when you're undoing things, you have to get rid of what's outside the parentheses first. So we're going to divide the 3/4 first because it's being multiplied, and then we're going to add the 45 after. Okay, number 4, solve for x. You subtract your 78.2 from each side, so you get 0.5x equals like 208. And then you divide both sides by 0.5. Okay, that's one that we've done a couple different times, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on that one. Okay, number 4. Katie bought 4 sweaters. Each cost the same amount. One shirt that cost $20. Okay, the cost of each sweater. So we'll let x equal sweaters. So you would have 4 sweaters, 4x, and she bought one shirt that cost $20. Plus 20 equals 160. All right, so that's what the equation would look like. All right, you subtract the 20. 4x equals 140. Divide 4. And if at any point, this is going fast, I'm trying to make this as short of a video as I possibly can, and especially emphasizing problems that. All right, so we end up with x equals 35. Okay. Now, you can just do this part of it and work your way backwards, and that's still going to be acceptable. You don't have to have an equation here. Number 5, which equation is equivalent to the expression? Okay, remember when you're simplifying an expression that you have to do, you're distributing, then you're combining. So we're going to distribute the negative 3 first. And remember what happens when you distribute a negative. So it becomes negative 12x. This negative 3 and a negative 2 becomes a plus 6 and then a minus 2x. And then you can combine your like terms. So I put the minus 2x underneath the negative 12x. We get negative 14x plus 6, which is choice D. Number 6, what is the radius in centimeters? Circumference. If the circumference equals 24 pi, it's one of the last things that we did in this module, then that 24, think about this, circumference equals pi times diameter, then that means that the diameter is 24, which means the radius would be 12. Number 7, which expression represents a factorization? Okay, the factorization is what we call undistribute. Okay, but what's nice about this, if you look at your choices, it's kind of telling you what you're undistributing. So an 8's definitely coming out. All right. But then there's this m that's in both of them. So it's clearly an 8. And if there's an m in both of them, that means that the m can also be undistributed, which leads us to choice D. You didn't really have to do a whole lot of work there. All right, number 8 is a recent problem that we've done. The least number of deliveries. He wants to earn more than $155, so $155. $9 per hour, $6 for each delivery. Okay, because we're trying to find a number of deliveries, that means that the variable goes with the 6. So this will be 6D or 6x. All right, deliveries. And then it's $9 per hour job for an 8-hour workday. So you have to multiply the 9 and the 8. All right, so you go through this and you solve it just like you would solve it as an equation. And some of you probably even set this up as an equation when you did it. So we get, I'll just save you, because I know at this point you guys are golden here. So what you get is you get about 13.83, I believe it is. But it has to be more than, which means in this case we would have to go up to 14. Right. Okay, 9. I'm just gonna rewrite this so it's a little bit bigger. 7 over 2h. I'm gonna go over this in class. This is gone over in class as well. So all right. So I know this fractions, but we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna distribute and we're gonna combine. So we're going to distribute the negative 3 first. So you get 7 over 2h. This becomes negative 15h, and it becomes plus 1 and 1/2. I'm going to assume you're using a calculator here. All right, so now you're going to put these two together, and when you put this in the calculator, let's bring a calculator here. You got 7abc2 minus 15. You get negative 11 and 1/2 h plus 1 and 1/2. All right, so when you get this and you start looking at your choices, none of them's match. So there is something that we can do. We can convert any mix. You see these are all improper fractions over here. You're going to have to look closely because it's small print. So you can take any mixed number, and if you press the second button and you press the ABC button, it actually will convert it to an improper fraction. Second ABC. And you get negative 23 over 2. So that's going to be negative 23 over 2 is going to be one of these two. And you have a plus 1 and 1/2, so it's got to be choice A. All right. Number 10, which inequality can Winston use to determine the minimum number of signatures so he can run for class president? At least 80 means that it's going to be greater than or equal to 80. So that means you can get rid of that one, you can get rid of that one, and you know what? You can get rid of this one. So really, with this one, you didn't have to do any more work. Just that first sentence give you enough information to answer the question. All right, number 11. What is the total length of the border? So when you're doing these problems, you have to be careful because this one doesn't say find circumference or area. It just says find the total length of the border. So you have to know that you're finding circumference. It's a circular region too. I guess maybe I should point that out. So the total length of the border, pi times diameter. So the radius is 5 yards. So if the radius is 5, that means the diameter is 10. The 10 goes in place of d. You get 10 pi. This one doesn't give you your choices, so you just put 10 pi in the calculator and you would get choice B. Number 12, expression the perimeter of the rectangle. So I'd like to draw a picture of this. So the length is this 5x minus 2.1y, and the width is 1.5x plus 2.7y. All right, I'm going to get rid of these two right away. Because we talked about how there's no way you can combine them all the way around. Or you can combine x's and y's. We've talked about that a few times. So then it's the perimeter. Now, the difference between this one and this one is this is the favorite mistake. If you don't go all the way around, so you got to do 1.5x over here plus 2.7y, and then you got to do a 3.5x here minus a 2.1y. All right, so if I combine my x's, 3.5x and 3.5x is 7x. 1.5x and 1.5x is 3x. That gives me 10x. I don't need to do any more work. Oops, move this up so you can see what I did. So I did the 3.5 and 3.5. I did the 1.5 and the 1.5. That gave me 10. So I know I didn't have to do anything else. That's the only choice. All right, moving on to open response number 13. What is the area? Immediately write the formula down, pi r squared. You will have these formulas provided for you when you're doing your work. The circumference, in terms of pi, very important. That means leave pi in. Circumference. We need to know the circumference. Well, in order to find circumference, we need to know, wait a minute, we know the circumference. The circumference is equal to 9 pi, sorry. All right. In order to find the area, we need to know the radius. All right. Well, this problem doesn't give us a radius, but it should give us enough information to know that, well, the diameter is 9. So if the diameter is 9, the radius is 4.5. You take half of it. So you take the 4.5, let's bring it all the way over here, put it in place of r, we get pi 4.5 squared. And because we're leaving it in terms of pi, we're just going to square the 4.5, which is 20.25. We tack the pi on, and we say centimeters squared. And number 14. They've already done a couple of these types of problems where it says we have to write an equation. So that means in order to receive full credit, you would have to write an equation and then solve that equation. So write an equation using m to represent the number of minutes. 0.5, so that means it's right over here where it's supposed to go. So that means that the m goes with a 0.05. You have an additional fee of $10 equals 22. All right, so there's your equation. So now we solve this equation, subtract 10. I know it's showing the work, but you can show the work wherever you want. So we get 0.5m, 0.05m, sorry, equals 12, and then you divide by 0.05, and you get m is equal to I have it here somewhere. 240 minutes. Not very many left. All right, number 15. Okay. At most, write and solve an inequality. So in order to receive full credit for this one, you would have to write an inequality. Okay. At most means less than or equal to. The most he can spend is $50. Let's scribble this out and rewrite it. At most, $50. He already bought chips for $6, and he buys sandwiches that are $4.50 each. X represents the number of sandwiches, so it'll be 450x plus the $6. When we solve this inequality, you get x is going to be less than or equal to like 9.7. All right. So because it's at most, if you go up to 10, 10 is going to put him over $50. So this has to come down to 9 sandwiches. This one we're asking how far back can he build his fence if he uses all 350 feet. Thomas wants to build a fence around his back lawn for his dog to run. He can only afford to buy 350 feet of fencing. The width of his lawn is 70 feet, as you can see in the diagram here. They want you to find how far back from the house. Now, typically what happens is people will put fences off the back of their house, which means that you don't have to put a fence in this piece here. So the fence is only going to go in these 3 spots. So if I start with 350 feet and I subtract off the 70, that's going to be this back fence, that gives me 280 feet. And that means I have 280 feet left for this spot and for this spot. So that means I would need to divide this by 2 so we could build it 140 feet back behind his house. And once again, I'm not including this side because this side's connected to the house and you don't need to put a fence there. All right, 2 more. What is the actual circumference of the wheel on the real car? Immediately write that formula down. Okay. Rupert has a replica car he wants to buy, and the diameter of one wheel is 3 inches. So the diameter is 3 inches. Okay. Now, where you're going to go wrong is putting the 3 inches in here because there's a scale. It says 1 inch equals 24 inches. So if I set this up as 1 inch equals 24 inches, then I have to figure out how many inches 3 would be. Okay, so you just multiply by 3, you get 72. So then the 72 goes here, so we get 72 pi. And because this didn't specify whether you wanted circumference or area, or sorry, whether they want it in terms of pi or rounded, we'll just write both. So you have the 72 pi, and then we'll get the rounded answer. We'll go to the nearest tenth, 226.2 inches. Okay. And then that leaves us with 1. What is the difference in their circumferences? So this is like the challenge problem that was in the notes. Okay. Circumference. So I'm going to write the formula down. Pi times diameter. All right, we got Mercury and we got Earth. All right. And you're given the diameters of both, so this actually is not as tough as it would originally look. So we take Mercury's diameter. I believe the challenge one that you did was they give you the radiuses. Okay, 30,032. Now I'm going to leave that for the moment. And I'm going to do Earth. Earth is going to be, you're just taking that diameter and putting it in place of D and putting it in front of pi. All right. Now, there's talk about when you can do the subtraction. The difference means you're going to subtract, and because they both have pi's, you can actually subtract them with the pi's in it already. Okay? And we talk about trying to leave pi for the end. So when you subtract those, you get 4, 8, 8, 6 pi. Right? Then you can put that in the calculator. So you do 4886 pi. Rounded to the nearest tenth would be 15,349.8 miles. Okay? Now you can put this in the calculator and put this in the calculator, then subtract them. You'll get the same thing. You might be off by like a tenth, but I wouldn't take off for that anyway. So, all right. So this is the end of the review sheet. So this is Mr. Sims signing off.